Get started. I thought we should do another webinar today about the PPP program and some of the stuff that we're hearing as it might help you, particularly today with the House considering the bill right now to reload the program. The bill that passed the Senate is going to allow for $310 billion to refund the payroll protection program. The $60 billion of that is going to be dedicated to small lenders, and then $250 of it's going to be for the primary program that's going on. So it's one of those things. So it's one of those things where there's going to be money available. I am going to tell you, however, that I would apply for this because I wouldn't assume that there's going to be another program. I just don't know. We've got different areas of the country that are opening up. And so this money, assuming the House passes it today and the president signs it, is going to go very quickly. And so what I'm going to encourage everybody is, if you don't have an application in, get it in now. If you own a business, you need to submit the PPP application with your bank, not the SBA, with the bank. You need to submit 941s for 2019, and you need to submit a payroll report for the February 15th, 2020 payroll period. That is the only thing that's required by the SBA. Other banks have put on other additional requirements, but that's the primary documentation that they require in order to do a loan. Get it in. Now, I continue to hear from a lot of colleagues and other people that are applying for various clients that are applying for the funding, particularly from large banks, that they are having tremendous amounts of issues and they don't have anybody to talk to. One of the things that I would really encourage people to do is to evaluate your banking relationship right now and determine if that banking relationship is in your best interest, or if you need to potentially find other ways to, might need to start looking for a new relationship. Evaluate. Right, we're in a crisis situation, and how has your bank performed for you? And this might be the time that you want to consider making a change, because we're hearing varying reports from across the country as to how their banks are responding and what's going on. I know I received my PPP money on Monday. I heard from another client that they closed on their loan last Friday. So money was flowing. That was before it was stopped. Those were applications that were in the system earlier. Now, I would not count on there being additional monies for the PPP program. Remember that there's also the economic injury disaster loan, which, as a part of that funding process, you can request a $10,000 grant. And that grant is forgivable. If you do them in conjunction, it gets added onto your PPP money for purposes of forgiveness and determining that. But if you don't do the PPP money and only take $10,000 under the EIDL, then you don't have to pay that money back. It's considered a grant. So they can work in concert. The economic injury disaster loan is up to $2 million. It's capped at 3.75% interest, and you can have a repayment term of up to 20 years. That's something that you work out with the bank and the SBA when it comes time to close the loan. I have not heard of anybody that has been able to successfully conclude an EIDL loan. I do know people that have received the grant, and the grant is supposed to be eligible. You're supposed to be eligible for it 3 days after filing an application. You can make a request for the grant. They're supposed to dump the money in your account. Not hearing a lot of success stories on that, but that's theoretically what it's supposed to be doing. But we have had people that have received that money on varying timelines across the country. Okay, so assuming that the House passes the bill and the president signs it today, $310 billion is going back into the PPP program. I assume it's going to go very fast. You have got to get your ducks in line and get your applications in place and be ready to go to get this money if you still haven't applied. And like I said, I don't expect that it's going to be refunded. I wouldn't count on that. I would assume that this might be the last shot at this particular program. Now, we have a situation that's beginning to dwell. So I'm spending a lot of my time, when I'm not talking to clients and pushing tax returns out the office, I'm spending a lot of time reading and learning about what's going on with the PPP program. And the sites from the professional side are turning, okay, we kind of have the application process down, and now we're turning to the forgiveness side. And there's a couple of traps in the forgiveness side that I want to let everybody know about, because I think it's very important that you're aware that they're there, and let's get ahead of it. Let's not, get past the 8-week period to spend the money the right way and then have to correct a problem. So there's a couple of traps. So let's talk about the forgiveness aspect of it, assuming you have your PPP money. So the forgiveness aspect of the loan for the PPP program says that if you spend your funds in an 8-week period from the first money received from the bank under the PPP program, then you can have that loan forgiven and it's not taxable income to you. Okay. The areas where you can spend the money are payroll costs, utilities, rent, and mortgage interest, not the whole payment, but mortgage interest for loans that you have. So it's just the interest, not the principal. Okay. Now, if you remember, the formula for calculating how much you're eligible for was 2.5 times your average monthly payroll calculated during 2019 for the vast majority of business owners. Okay. For forgiveness, there's a potential gap because you have to spend it over an 8-week period. You can't control necessarily when you receive your funds and where that falls on a payroll run. The SBA added a requirement in the regulations that said to be forgivable, you had to spend 75% of the money on payroll costs. That was not in the law, right? That was something that the SBA added in the regulations. So now you have the additional requirement of 75% of the money has to be on payroll. You have other allowable costs, and it's got to be during the 8-week period. So let's look at this. So the first test is, did you spend it on an allowable purpose? If you spent it on an allowable purpose in that 8-week period, followed the 75% rule for payroll costs, you will pass that first threshold. Now, one trap that comes up right here is the trap that employer payroll taxes. So not the employee's portion, right? You're calculating gross payroll. The employer's side of it is not a payroll cost that will be forgiven. So if you are following the recommendation and putting the money into a separate account and using the PPP money out of that separate account to cover payroll, and let's say you set that account up to be then the direct withdrawal account for the IRS when they take your EFTPS payment for employer payroll taxes, you may need to refund from your general business account your employer side taxes into that account, because it's not something that is an allowable expenditure that's subject to forgiveness. And so you can't ask the IRS to pull, different amount of money out of different accounts for your EFTPS. It's just, they only allow you to have one bank account. So just be wary of that. So I personally, my first payroll run out of my new account is going to be tomorrow. And we're going to know what the employer payroll cost is, and I'm going to immediately put that money in from my business account to cover that cost, so that in my PPP account, it's just true payroll cost. I've already reimbursed the employer side cost and I'm not seeking forgiveness for that. So that's the first trap, is that the employer side payroll taxes are not eligible for forgiveness. You can't use this money for that and have it be forgiven. Okay, so we're back to, we want allowable expenses. We talked about a little bit of a trap on the employer side. And then there's two other tests that we need to apply side by side to see if your money is forgivable. Okay, so you have to do the allowable expenses, make sure you've covered your employer side payroll taxes, but then we have to look at your employee headcount and your employee compensation. If you have lost people during this time period, there is the potential that you are not going to have all your money forgiven. They have a formula which basically says these are the employees that you had during this period, these periods in 2019. And it's essentially the first full quarter before this program all kicked in. So it'd be the last quarter of 2019 for the vast majority of us. And these are the employees we have now, and they're just divided by one another. And that is the amount eligible for forgiveness from this test. So if you're down one or two employees, there's a chance that you are not going to receive full forgiveness because you're down. Now, if you have had to lay people off, right? If you've laid them off and you bring them back within 30 days, that does not penalize you under this formula. Okay? So if you've had to make the tough choice to let people go or stay at home for a while because there just wasn't money coming in and there was no business to take care of, but now with this PPP money, you're bringing people back, which is the intent of it. If you bring them back within 30 days, there's no penalty. Now, and it's one of these things that makes me think only in America, right? We are hearing reports from business owners that they are having a great deal of difficulty getting their employees to come back to work. There's been stories of that because if you remember what happened as part of the CARES Act 3, which started the PPP program, there was a substantial increase in the unemployment benefits paid to unemployed individuals until July 31st of this year. And that benefit is $600 a week. So you take the state benefit, whatever that would have been, and you add $600 a week to it, and it's without regard to full-time, part-time, anything. It's $600 a week to the employees. So there's some employees who are sitting at home making more money than what they would earn if they were working. And so we have people that are not coming back to work because they want to earn more money, or not earn, but receive more money, right? It's economics. I don't know if it's lazy. I don't know what it is. It's just, it's crazy that we're competing with unemployment benefits to bring people back to work, but that's the reality of what we've built. So if that is a situation for you, document it. Document, email, text. This is the communication of the employee. Hey, you're eligible for recall starting this day. I need you to start working, boom, 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 and document the employee's response. If they call you, if they send you a text, if they send you an email, all you can do is keep records. The SBA has actually had internal meetings because this is happening. And the director of the SBA is the one who shared this advice, is just document that the employee doesn't want to come back to work at the present time for whatever reason. And they are going to work on guidance to address this in the forgiveness aspect of it so that the formula isn't skewed. On that note, we've been told to expect additional guidance from the SBA starting April 27th. So next week, they're promising us guidance on the forgiveness aspect of it. I don't know if that's going to be timely or not. Remember, we were expecting guidance on the sole proprietor program the Wednesday or Thursday before April 10th, and we didn't get it till April 14th, and then the money ran out April 15th. So I'm hopeful that we get guidance April 27th on this issue, because the forgiveness aspect of it is where we're focusing our energies right now, getting people ready for that, because the 8-week period is going to go pretty quick. And we want to make sure that if you've used the money the correct way, you get as much forgiveness as you're entitled to, and hopefully 100%. All right, so we have the issue of, hold on a second, we got a question maybe. There was a question from somebody about whether the mortgage interest is for owning a building or if it's for your home mortgage interest. It is not your home. It is a business expenditure, and it has to be for a loan that you had taken before February 15th of 2020. Same with your rent. You can't enter into a new rent obligation after February 15th, 2020 and use this money for it. It's only for rent obligations that existed prior to February 15th of 2020. So this does have nothing to do with your home stuff. That's coming out of your payroll and salary. You can't pay your home mortgage out of the business account. So I would recommend against that. And I think there's going to be more policing on the forgiveness side, and there's going to be a little bit. It's going to be a second round of frustration because it's new to everybody, and different people are going to interpret things different ways, and they're going to try to be as consistent as possible. But all you can do is keep really good records and demonstrate that I use the money exactly as intended. Now, going back to allowable expenses for a minute, on the utility side, I've had a couple questions about internet. Internet costs are considered utilities specifically under the code, under the law. So if you are paying your, dedicated bandwidth into the firm, into your company, that cost is considered a utility along with electric and gas and water. So you can do internet connectivity. You can pay that out of the PPP money. That is an allowable expenditure. All right. So just going back through it, we have to have an allowable expense. Again, payroll costs, not including employer side taxes, rent from a contract before February 15th, 2020, mortgage interest from a contract that existed before February 15th, 2020, and utilities. That's it. You can't spend the money and have it be forgivable on any other purpose. Now, if then we go to the number of employees test, right? And whether we can write off or whether we've maintained our head counts. And we talked about the unemployment situation. We have to document if somebody's refusing to come back to work. The final test is a drop in compensation. If you've had to cut people's wages, I know a lot of companies have cut people's salaries or compensation 10%, but they give them Fridays off, so they're at a 4-day work week essentially, and they've cut it. If you're less than $100,000 and the cut in pay is less than 25%, it has no effect on your formula, right? It's only a 25% reduction or more for people less than 100 grand, and people over 100 grand. I'm sorry to say they don't really care about you, according to what we've read so far, but we are expecting additional guidance on April 27th. So really, this is going to be a short little update today on where we're at, but if you guys have any questions, fire them into the screens. But that's what we know about forgiveness. I really wanted to make you aware of use the money for the allowable expenses and make sure your payroll costs don't include the employer side costs, because that's not an allowable expense under either the code or the SBA and the regulations that have come out afterwards. And we should get more guidance on that next week. But for my purposes, I'm just reimbursing my PPP account for the amount of the employer side stuff, so that I have more cash in there. I've replaced that cash and I can use that for an allowable expense. We'll probably do another one of these as soon as we get the guidance from the SBA on forgiveness, just to keep everybody up to date. But remember, your 8-week period for allowable expenses starts when you get your first batch of money. Now, most people are going to get one tranche of money and there's only one measuring date. So it starts 8 weeks. Keep records. Even if you open a separate account, Nicole in my office has got a spreadsheet going to help me track exactly what we're doing. And so we can track that the money we put back in to cover the employer side cost, and we're breaking it down by category. I can't tell you enough. You cannot have enough records to prepare for the forgiveness part of it, because it's a two-phase application. You got your money, spend it the right way. Now we got to apply for forgiveness. Let's make forgiveness as painless as we possibly can, and let's get it done. Just a couple of other notes. I'm getting feedback from people about how they're doing. Everybody's spirits are still pretty good. We have a few people that are really struggling right now. Do the best you can to be a valuable resource to people around you. Give as much as you can, but find and identify opportunity in this, right? Things are changing, and this is the opportunity for you to be able to slow down a little bit, think, adapt, figure out something new, find a way to add value to your clients and to your communities, and provide resources to them. Because if you reflect back on it, at least from my perspective, it's a time that we don't normally get, right? We can slow down a little bit, and it's permissible. And I think that we need to appreciate that and really utilize this time right now. Some of the states are beginning to ramp back up, and I think it's going to start next week. Georgia's coming back online tomorrow with a lot of stuff. And I think it kind of has to happen. I guess sometime history will evaluate whether we overreacted or whether this was necessary and prudent. I assume people that live in large metropolitan areas where there's population density are thinking this was all necessary. And those of us that live out in the sticks, my nearest neighbor, you can't even see him. So, but anyway, find ways to innovate, find ways to add value, and keep your spirits up. If we can be of any service to you at the firm, you know how to reach I think you know how to reach us. You can email me at bwilley@americantbp.com. Happy to answer any questions. If you are struggling with a bank and struggling to get an application in, I have a couple of people that act as agents and can help you place the loans. So I can make an introduction to you, and they can help you with the process, and they can push it. So if you need that kind of assistance, reach out. And we have somebody that is worked in banking for many, many, many years, but now is on the other side of the coin and helps clients obtain funding and financing, and they walk you through the process. There's a little bit of comp involved, but if they're going to do the heavy lifting, let them do it. And I was being serious about evaluating who your relationships are right now. If your bank hasn't really performed during this time for you, and you don't feel like you have anybody you can talk to about it, this is the time to consider making a change and to identify other opportunities. So with that, I don't have any other questions. I'll let you guys go. We'll have another conversation when we get the regs out on the forgiveness aspect of it, more detailed guidance, and what kind of paperwork exactly they're going to require, what that application hopefully looks like is going to be coming pretty soon. And we'll keep you as informed as we possibly can. If there's any other developments with new programs, we'll keep you up to date on that. One more thing, if the bill today passes, there's also an additional $10 billion in there for the economic injury disaster loan program, which is the $10,000 grant that you are eligible for within a few days of applying. So they have refunded or refilled that vessel as well. So good luck to you guys. Keep plugging, and let us know how we can be of service to you. Have a great day.